back in with the modern council and the modern world. He wants to be loved, he wants to be accepted, he wants to be politically correct, he wants to be part of the official church, he can't bear being out, whereas the Archbishop couldn't care about those things. He cared about the faith. And without the faith, what is anything? The faith is the completeness of truth. Without the truth, where are we? We're certainly not on the road to God. God is a God of truth. God is not a God of lies, nor a God of ambiguity. Nobody can get to heaven by lies, or by fooling himself, or by ambiguity. Yes?
Bishop, have you and the other two bishops met with Bishop Flay face to face to discuss these kinds of concerns?
Have either I or the two other bishops met with Bishop Flay to express to him these concerns? I met with him last, I think it was towards the end of 2011. And I asked to meet him. And he originally invited me over to Switzerland. And I said, for various reasons, I'd rather not. He came all the way to London. He flew to London to see me. And then flew back in the afternoon. We talked for 2 or 3 hours. Well, maybe 3 or 4 hours, in an open and friendly fashion. No harsh words, no bitterness, no anger. I think I did most of the talking, but let's just say he listened, but I don't think there was a meeting of minds. All right? As for the other two, I think Bishop Tissier went to see him quite often until I don't know how long ago. I think Bishop Tissier probably still goes to see him to raise an objection to what he's doing, because Bishop Philly doesn't agree with Bishop Philly's Roman policy. But Bishop Philly just doesn't listen. He doesn't listen. He gives the impression he's listening, but it goes in one ear and out the other. If it isn't his idea, if it doesn't go with the way he wants it, the way he thinks, he smiles sweetly, he gives you the impression he's agreeing, but actually he's not agreeing at all. He's a politician. If you go and see a modern politician, he will always give you the impression he agrees with you. But you can't trust that appearance.
Have you seen any play talks about the young seminarians and young priests and those sort of young bishops that are conservative, moving back toward tradition, that back into it has fallen apart? Did you see any of that?
Some, but I don't think nearly. I don't see nearly as much of that as Bishop Foley does. And the reason is because I don't think these youngsters of goodwill, let's say, really understand what's at stake. They're coming, I think, in many cases, they're youngsters of goodwill. That's not the problem. The goodwill is not the problem. But they don't understand how deep the modernist perversion goes. Because the modernist perversion is, this is not a bottle, it's a glass. Because I say so. When you're with a bottle and a glass, the example is very clear. And obviously common sense says it's a bottle and it's not a glass. But the principle of my mind saying what is truth is very deep today and very widespread. And so you can even believe in tradition, but if you believe in it if I believe in tradition because I believe in it, I think it's the best, I accept it, that's different from, it comes from God, and if I want to get to God's heaven, I have to submit. That's different. I accept that this is a bottle. Or, This is a bottle because it is a bottle whether I like it or not. Do you see the difference? It's very deep. It's called subjectivism, which is the heart of modernism. And subjectivism is the idea, just like you had the earth, was the sun went around the earth, and then the earth went around the sun. So, in the old days, the mind went around the object. Today, the object goes around the mind. Do you see? It was called in philosophy the Copernican revolution, namely the world turning around my mind instead of my mind turning around what the world is. That's how deep modernism is. And it's a perversion of the mind. It's a sickness of the mind. And yet these people are not fit to be put in hospital or in a funny farm. They should be all in funny farms because they're all crazy. The huge number of people today are crazy. Does that make sense? I mean, look at this same-sex marriages and so on and so on. The madness is rushing down the pike, one after another, one madness after another, and people are just accepting it. It's becoming as common as daisies. And people are not objecting. They're no longer seeing that this is completely crazy. This feminization of men and the masculinization of women is a disaster. It's crazy. It's sick. But it's everybody accepts it. Because men are no longer what they are and women what they are. They're what we make them. Reality is what we make it. That's the new religion. That's the new world. That's the world that's all around us, and it's why it's so crazy. And it's why it's so difficult to be a Catholic, because if a Catholic is somebody who says that the true religion is true because I accept it, he's not Catholic. He may be of goodwill, he may think he's Catholic, but he can't. He's believing on a completely different basis. And therefore, a number of these youngsters, they're of goodwill. They're good guys, they're nice guys, they're good guys, these young priests and young seminarians. But they've got little to no idea of just how deep the problem runs. Does that make sense? And therefore, I think when Bishop Philip greets these encouraging signs, he's not seeing deeply enough. And so I'm not going to say these people are no good. The youngsters are not to be encouraged. I think they are to be encouraged. But they've got to be led little by little to see that, religion is not, it's not because they like tradition that tradition is to be followed. Tradition is to be followed because it imposes itself upon us, because it comes from God. We have got to submit to God. Submission is against our pride. All of us moderns are more or less proud. It looks as though things are moving. I think we...
The average parishioner who's very sincere, who doesn't, let's say we go to our church and the gentleman over there asking, how do you know you're infected? Within our parish, if everything, I accept that Bishop Fillet has his motivation, he's lost sight of the truth. How do you know if everything appears within your parish church, all the sacraments, nothing has changed by all appearance? To the average parishioner, it's the same. We're receiving the same sacraments by the same sincere young priests who are trying to help us. Or is the idea the ship's going down? Should we get off to save ourselves, or are we trying to create a message to encourage Bishop Fillet, perhaps, and those at the top, that we're all exiting? Are they going to change? Is it Are we looking out for, we're getting off the sinking ship? Are we trying to get a message across that their thinking is wrong? I mean, it is, certainly. I'm trying to say, what do you do as an average parishioner if you don't know what's going on, if you don't have this inside line to know what's going on behind the scenes, Bishop DeLay? If you didn't know, I mean, how do you know when to leave, when to go into that church, a society church that's providing all the same sacraments, and by all appearances, it's the same? How do you know when to leave?
Well, everybody has to make his own judgment. And if you don't see it, it's difficult to act on it.
Sure.
But I would say, take a good long look at the doctrinal declaration of April 2012, by which Bishop Foley still stands, by which he says he still stands. He says he's withdrawn it, meaning that people weren't clever enough to understand how subtle he was being, meaning that people didn't appreciate his ambiguity. Now, you've got to read and you've got to think. So, I think that if you don't see it, you can't act on it. But if you don't see it, it all depends how seriously you take those who say they do see it. Do you take them seriously? If you take them seriously, you will begin reading and you'll begin thinking. If you begin reading and thinking, you will very likely see it. And if you see it, then it's not only reasonable to jump off the lifeboat, there's a moment at which it becomes necessary to jump off the lifeboat, because the lifeboat is going the same way as the Titanic, it's sinking. Okay. Let me give you a blessing, we'll be on our way. Benedictio Dei omnipotens, Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti, descendet super vos, et manet semper. Amen.